Hello and welcome back to Kevin's Hobby Showcase. My name is Kevin. You may have seen me before on Tabletop Jones Presents 2D's Playing War Games with me and my friend John. And speaking of that, of course, I'm going to be working on the set for Marvel Crisis Protocol, the set of X-23 and Honeybadger. So as you can, here we go, there's X-23, as you can see already primed, because pieces, when you just put them together, they just look all gray. And here we have Honeybadger, again already primed. I primed these before I started making these videos. I just haven't gotten around to painting them, so you'll get to see me start to paint these. And I hope that with what I show, hope my methods that I show, not that I learned them from anyone with any experience. It's all self-taught. And if you're like me and you have like a bit of arthritis in the hands, sometimes it gets a little difficult, and you got to learn how to compensate for the discomfort and the pain. But I tell you this though, sometimes actually doing it is really good exercise for your fingers, especially when they're hurting, because it gets them moving, it keeps them moving, and maybe later on they don't feel as bad as they could if you just did nothing with them. So yeah, these are more X-Men characters, and as you know, for those of you who follow the comics, you know that both of these are technically clones of Wolverine. So but I got they got they have nice pictures on the box. That's what I usually go by when I decide how I'm going to paint them, like the colors I'm going to use. So stay tuned, and we'll start putting on base coats and eventually get around to the little details. As you can see, they are not really big pieces, they're pretty small, and it does get a little challenging, but it can be a little fun. Alright, so stay tuned, and we'll start getting to work on these. Alright, thank you so much. Okay, we're back, and we're going to get to work today on the characters X-23 and Honeybadger. Now, as you can, as I showed you before, they are already primed. I had primed them previously. But also, now these are small pieces, so I'm going to show you from the box that the base coating is going to be different. I mean, it's going to be very different, to be honest, because so you see here, the costumes are a bit more elaborate with the colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretty much do a base coat on what is going to be the costume first, and then go from there. So I'm not going to fill in too much after that. I'm going to do white for Honeybadger, and I'm going to do a gray color for X-23. So let me do what I should have done already, is get the paints out. And let's see, what do we got here? Yeah, neutral gray should be okay. Okay, so I got white for Honeybadger and a neutral gray for X-23. So those of you who read the comics know X-23 and Honeybadger are both clones of Wolverine. Pretty interesting story when it was coming out. Also, that X-23, or Laura Kinney, as she is also named, was also calling herself Wolverine for a little while, even dressed like him for a brief moment, as she was a member of the X-Men. She actually wore something similar to his yellow and blue outfit, which will be shown in the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie coming out this July. So that's going to be very cool to see. So anyway, let's get to it. So put this on first, and let's just tilt this down. I'll wait to put the light on so I don't blind you. Okay, so let's start off with the white and get Honeybadger done. Now, I also went through my brushes, because some of them were getting pretty worn, and I have a whole bunch of new ones out, so I'm going to use one of the new ones to paint Honeybadger. And yes, it is basically white paint on white primer, but that's okay, because you don't want to just leave it as primer, because it doesn't always look right. And I've seen primers available in a number of different colors. The only ones that I've seen so far or white like I've used here. I also use gray a lot, and they also have it in black. Now I've never used the black, but my friend John has, because when we were doing War Machine, one of his, I think his not I think I know his first army was the Army Cricks, which they call the Nightmare faction in the game, and they were, you know, pretty much everything was like all black. So he used to use the black primer, and then of course black paint on top of that. And let me just tell you something. I mean, it may sound lazy, but it isn't, because his stuff always looked incredible. He would come up with different ways to make things look like they had an eerie glow to it, and he always managed to pull it off. You know. Matter of fact, when we used to play the game exclusively. We used to play it all the time. You know, not only did I always compliment his, you know, the way his pieces looked, but when people, you know, because we used to play in a store, Comic Book Jones, here in Staten Island, and people would come in. Some people might, you know, actually watched us play, and they would comment too, because, like, you know, because my friend John's a big horror fan, so playing the Nightmare faction, which is right up his alley. And some people would come in, and, you know, I guess they were horror fans as well, and they were like, "Oh man, oh, your stuff looks so cool." And of course he would, you know, be smile from ear to ear, and I don't blame him. You know, it's good. It's always good to hear something like that. All right, so as you can see, Honeybadger is already finished. Oh, sorry if I held it out of the camera. I hope I didn't. Let's clean the brush. Okay. And now I'm going to, let's put the white away first. And now I'm going to take out the gray to do X-23. So, anyway, my first army in that game was the faction called Signar. And the reason why I chose that is because while this game was set in a steampunk type era, you know, I am a big sci-fi buff. You know, I love science fiction. I love, you know, with all the technology and all that other stuff. So that's what they had, and that was up my alley. You know, maybe one day I'll, if I can, you know, I could take, you know, take them all out. Maybe one day and start showing them off, or maybe one day John and I will get back into the game. Although there is a new version of it. So it might take us a while. We may have to learn a whole new set of rules, which would be a pain in the rear. But if we want to do that game again, I think we're going to have to do that. You know, and then we'll just show off what we did on the pieces previous. I think one of the things that we have to do is hope that what we already have hasn't been like phased out, because sometimes that's what these game companies do. They come up with new versions, and then they take all the older stuff and they say, "Oh yeah, we're not using this anymore," and it's a real pain in the ass. Yeah, no pun intended, as that's what I'm painting right now, is our ass. But yeah, well, that wasn't my intention. Alright, let's get all that in here. Alright, so like I said, base coats for this one is going to be different. So I mean, it's still quite a bit. So obviously there's going to be a lot more detailing on these pieces, especially from what we showed on the box as far as the costumes go. So now pretty much base coating is finished. See, with smaller pieces, base coating does not take long. Sometimes it takes seconds, you know. Alright, so let's tilt this back up. Okay, so, you know, so we finished the base coat pretty quickly, as I thought that we would. And so next we can let this dry, of course, and then we're going to get to some details. The details Might be able to do more than I usually do at a time, because it's not a lot of painting over. Some of it is actually just painting over the primers, which is already dry. So we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and we're going to get to the finer details of X-23 and Honeybadger. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back. We are doing on the Marvel Crisis Protocol game, X-23 and Honeybadger. So I've already put on the little bit of the base coat that I could really do. The rest is pretty much going to be what color is needed on what body part, pretty much. So let's get to it, okay? Okay, let's put this on. Just take this down just ever so slightly. Alright. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do first this time is the flesh color. And I've said this before. I know that in reality, there are many different types of flesh color and tones, but that's what the color of the paint says. So let's just get this on. Alright. So, as you've seen, excuse me, as you have seen from pieces I've done before, I like to stay with the color schemes from what they show in the box, and because that usually goes with what is shown in the comics. You know, these are comics that I do read frequently. Well, depending on the character. Some characters I don't read at all, but I do read the X-Men a lot, and I don't feel the need to get creative to you know, make the pieces look different than what they would how they would normally appear in the comics. I actually want it to appear that way. I mean, you can get creative if you want with whatever you're doing, but whoops. But for this, I want to keep it the way it's supposed to look. All right. Now, I did notice when I looked at the box that there's a bit of midriff showing on X-23, so I'm going to get that in there now. And I'm trying to use very, very thin tipped brush for this. I was looking through what I have, because some of the ones that I had are starting to look a bit, you know, frayed out and worn. This is one that I've been using, but so far so good with it, I suppose. Alright. And just kind of a bit showing down on the legs. Okay, now some of the costume, like the boots and the gloves, I am going to use a darker gray so that it stands out. And every now and again I see a little hair or fuzzy I got to pull off. Alright, so getting all this. Alright. Okay. Oh, there's a little bit. There we go. Alright, so that's for that for X-23. Now let's get to Honeybadger. Now look at how small those arms look. Look at that. Imagine these adult-sized fingers trying to get those to stay. I can tell you that a majority of the time I was pulling them off my own fingers when I was trying to glue them to the body. So I know putting these things together is supposed to be fun, but sometimes it can get a little frustrating, especially, like I just said, when you're basically gluing the pieces to your fingers, which is why I don't do videos of building these things, because you know what you will be it would either be a lot of editing of me editing out all those many mistakes that I'm going to make, or or you're going to basically hear me cursing a lot out of frustration, because every time I think I had the piece to stay, it was not staying. Alright, now for Honeybadger, it's the same thing as for X-23. There's different parts of the costume. I'm going to use a darker gray to make it stand out more. Now, one thing I did notice when I was looking at the box is that there is, you can see, I mean, I don't know if you can see it, it's like ridges that separate one part from another, whereas like past the ridge is going to be another color. However, on that ridge is black, like very, very tiny, thin, black. So I'm going to attempt to do that. Hopefully I don't totally mess the piece up. I'm going to use a new, when I get to it, I'm going to use a new brush for it. And hopefully I can pull it off. Alright, so with X-23, I'm going to do a little bit more on the costume, because with her it's the same thing. There's going to be gray, there's going to be white, and separating the two is going to be the same thing. It's going to be this thin line of black. So again, I'm going to attempt to do that. I just don't know how successful I'm going to be. Alright, so here we go. Right. Started on one, had to go to the other, because on the inside is where they got the white. Unfortunately, it looks like a yellow is bleeding through. I'm going to put more white on there to try to get rid of that. Alright, so getting it nice in here. Alright, now there's also a little bit of white on the top part of the costume. It's right over here. So I'm going to try to get the little bit that's needed without getting too much on it. Get a little bit further down. Alright, so any more detailing on those parts, I'm going to have to wait until all that dries. However, there are other parts that we can work on. Alright, so let's start with let's see. Oh, actually, with Honeybadger, there is a bit more I can do. Let's get the yellow out. And let's move that aside. So with her, let's get those side areas. Okay. The side areas. Now I'm actually a little surprised that they included this character. Not that I think it's a bad character, but I didn't think that they would start having kid characters in this game. As a matter of fact, in the comics, it could sometimes be pretty comical to read her parts because she's just so blunt. Alright, so hold on a sec, let me consult the box. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to get to here. I'm going to get this part. Okay. Now let's get the other side. All right. Yeah. Okay, we got that. And now let's see, what can we move on to now? That's not going to mess up what we've already done. And well, we could start. We could do the hair. Yeah, let's do the hair. All right, let's put the yellow away. We're not going to need this. And let's start off with X-23. We'll take out the black because she does pretty much have jet black hair. Alright, the only thing that might get in our way is if the flesh color we put in isn't fully dry yet, which just may not be, but if we're careful, it won't even affect it. Alright. And I like to think so far so good. Alright, well, we got one side going pretty good here. Let's get the other side. Because if we're gonna make a mistake, I'd rather do it now. No particular reason. Alright. And we're going very, very good with this so far. See, again, I'm using my own hands to brace myself, to try to keep my hand as steady as possible. Do it when I need it. I don't always need it. But I'm going to need it now. Let me get a little bit more paint on the brush, and let's get the underside of this. Do it ever so slightly. Okay. And all right. That actually came in nicely. All right. Now for Honeybadger, what they show on the box and from what I remember of the comics, she's going to be more brown with the hair. So let's get the brown. Okay, now let's get a nice brush for that. And here we go. Just put my heel of my hand in it. Alright, so let's get this nicely done. Alright, as you can see, I'm still using my one hand to steady the other. Because, well, for one, I'm used to doing it. So it's almost second nature while I'm doing this. And of course, I started doing it because it was effective. I was able to keep my hand steady to do pieces I wanted to do. and I made a lot less mistakes when I started doing this. Alright. Okay, almost done. Now I know for those of you who may have seen the first video I did, where I did the Sentinels, a lot of it took a long time, mainly because the pieces were so big. You know, and there was 2 of them. Alright. But, you know, most of the pieces are not that big for this game. Matter of fact, a lot of them are just like those, pretty small. So when you go to paint them, it doesn't take as long. Alright, let's see, what have we got left here? What have we got on X-23? Actually on X-23, as you can, whoops, big fingers, small pieces. On X-23, as you can see, I'm going to have to go over it again. I'm going to go over the black again. But I'm going to wait on that, because sometimes you got to wait for the paint to dry, because otherwise when you go over it, instead of actually putting more paint on, you're rubbing the paint off. Alright, but what I am going to do, and I could do this for both of them, is I'm going to take out the dark gray and try to fill in with the dark gray any little bits that I can that need to be done. Okay, so X-23, what do I need dark gray for? Well, looks like pretty much the gloves on the hands and the boots. Alright. Okay. And I'm not even going to worry about the beginning of the claws or how much of the claws I may actually get paint on, because I'm going to go over the claws with metallic gray, and it'll make it stand out more. And the little noises I make as I'm doing these things. Okay. Yep. It's gonna come in nicely. You got something, you know, always tilt your pieces, you know, so that you can try to get the paint on without hitting something else, especially if it's a hard to reach spot. Alright. So, we got the dark gray on X-23. Let's see what we what we can do for Honeybadger. Now, not only is it going to be the boots and the gloves, but she's got a nice little gadget belt, you know, nice little pouches. Well, we're going to get those too. But first, let's get the gloves, which is so small that it's going to be done in like record time. Yeah, see? And it's the same thing. I'm not going to worry about how much of this paint I get on the claw, because I'm going to go over it again with metallic gray. Let's get the boots. Alright, filling in nicely. Now, these mutant pieces that I'm doing, there's no guarantee that they're ones that we're going to actually use when we do mutants versus sentinels. I think the way John and I planned it out is going to be done over 2 days, and so I figure what we could do is switch off. So on one of those days I'll be the mutants, and on another one of those days John will be the mutants, and we'll pick our own team of mutants that we want to use against the sentinels. And the way the game works as far as building a team. They have on each card for the player, for the character, I mean, they have a crisis number that's basically a value that you would use to help build your team. So, I mean, we're not using it to the crisis rules, but we are going to use that statistic on the cards to build our team. So what I'm going to do is we'll take the value of all the sentinels with the crisis number, and we're going to I just add them all together because we're going to use 3 of them, and that's the number to build a team for the mutants. All right, so one thing I almost forgot on Honeybadger, she had like knee pads, so I'm going to make those dark gray as well. And everything is filling in pretty good. We're going to give this some time to dry and finish up the detailing after our break, or my break I should say. And so then what, oh, I'll close this before I forget. Okay. Okay, so what have we got left? We've basically got just a little bit more details on both pieces, and I'm going to attempt that thin black line. I don't know how successful I'm going to be. I hope I don't mess up my pieces too badly attempting it, but I want to make the attempt. I think I have a brush that's thin enough that's going to work, but we'll see. And so once the detailing is done, we'll take another break, and then we'll come back. We'll do the basing, and then of course the armor wash. So we still got a bit to go, so stay tuned. I will be right back. Okay, I'm back, and we're going to try to finish up the detailing. So let's just get right to it. I mean, there's not a lot left to do, but there is enough. I'm going to keep a steady hand for some of it, as you'll see. All right, let's just put that down. And get myself ready here. Okay. Well, let's go with metallic gray first. And pretty much get those claws painted. Alright, let's grab X-23. And I'm just going to lightly put them on. Put on the metallic gray, get on both sides. Alright, let's get okay, so there we go. It's going to shine a little bit, as metal tends to do. Now let's get Honeybadger. She has only got the one claw, and I always said, when I was reading her in the comic, I always said to myself, looks like she's flipping us all off with that one claw. Kind of like what they had Wolverine do in the first X-Men movie, when he wanted to be, wanted to oh so subtly tell Cyclops to F off. Alright. Now, there's one thing I noticed I missed with Honeybadger, which I'm going to fix now, is a bit of the dark gray that's supposed to go on her arms. Alright, so let's get that, put that aside. Now, this dark gray we're also going to use when we do the base. But for now, I'm going to use it on the piece itself. Alright, so here we go. And it's like the sleeves of her costume. It's gotta have dark gray.
Okay. Let's get that setting the hand a bit. Let's get that in there. Try not to go over the yellow. All right, it's one sleeve. Let's get the other. Okay. And like I said earlier, you know, when these pieces are small, like these are, a lot of what you're going to do can go by quick. All right. Now, the moment of truth. I'm going to attempt to put that thin black line that I was telling you about earlier on these pieces. Now, it's going to have to be done very delicately. And I'm going to try my darndest to do it and to make it come out looking good. So, basically here, where the yellow meets the white, there's a, I don't know if you could see it, but there's like a ridge on it because it's raised up. So that's what I'm going to try to get, and it's the same thing on the pants of her costume. So kind of just a little bit of paint on here, and we're going to get a little bit more on. All right, so let's try it again. Oh, look at that. Let's get a little bit more. Now, when you're dealing with something this delicate, you're going to have to reapply the paint onto the brush quite a few times, because you're only using a little bit. Because if you don't use a little bit, what you're going to wind up having is a mess. Alright, this one is a little bit off. Let's get a little bit more on there. Kind of get just a touch more. Because you want to get it so that when we actually apply, it goes on. Alright, so got the one side, let's get the other. Well, actually, I don't think I finished this side yet. Alright, let's get the one now. Like I said, you have to reapply very frequently. Alright, doesn't look even, but then again, her torso's kind of leaning a bit, so it's not terribly bad. Alright, and let's get the pants. Alright, so I'm actually doing it. Alright. Alright. I mean, I don't know if you could see it. I am frequently looking over at the box to make sure I'm doing it right. Alright. We're getting it on pretty nicely. So I'm actually glad that I went through what I have as far as brushes that I haven't used yet, so that I could actually get this looking good. Alright, let's get a little bit more down here. Alright, and okay.
All right. Well, as you can see, came out not too bad. So now let's go to X-23, and it's not as much. It's just on the pants. At least I think it's, actually no, it's probably it. I can get, so it's where the gray meets the white. Where the gray meets the white. That's where I'm going to be doing it. All right. So. And of course, when I'm doing things like this is usually when I notice things that I've missed. And I noticed that the belt for X-23, I didn't really do anything. So I'm going to do that when I'm done with this. Alright, so getting it nice. Alright. Had a little bit more of that than I wanted, but it's okay. And while I'm at it, let's fix spots missing in her hair. Okay. Let's get a little bit down here. I don't know if you heard him, that was my cat Logan, who is demanding my attention right now. Alright, but fortunately for him, right now I gotta pay attention to this so that I don't really mess it up. Okay, so I did it. I put that thin little black line on. Didn't mess up too much. I think in some areas I may have messed up a little bit. And now I'm going to take out the dark gray, and I'm going to get the belt of X-23. Let me choose a good brush for this. I think this is a good one here. Okay. Alright, it's not going to stand out too much. This may not be too noticeable on the camera, but in person, it does look a little bit more. Okay. So, alright. So we got the detailing done. Didn't take as long as I thought it was going to. So let me put my paint away. Although I'm not going to put this too far away. I'm going to need this for the base. Alright, so got the little details going good on X-23. And on Honeybadger, you can actually see it a little bit better. The little black lines there. So, okay, this is going pretty good. Okay, so we're going to take a break, let that paint dry, and then we're going to do the basing, and then after that is the armor wash, and it's all finished. So stay tuned. I will be right back. Okay, we've given everything some time to dry, and now we're getting ready to do the base. So let's just get right to it, alright? So let's get this on. Alright. So, as I said, I'm going to use dark gray for the base. And these bases are pretty simple. So there's not a lot of details that has to be worried about here on the bases for these pieces. Although I'm not going to be able to use the piece so much for leverage as I'm doing this, so I just got to be very careful. And of course, once I'm done with these pieces,
I have the foam trays that are custom made for them by a site called Battle Foam. Alright, I'm going to have to use the piece anyway. So the only thing I wish that Battle Foam did with oh boy, with the custom trays is I kind of wish that they etched into the foam the name of the piece near the space that they made for it, because it's not always it's not always like very visible, very noticeable that that the space for the piece is actually for it, because when you're looking at it, you're just seeing like a lot of almost like silhouettes, and can get a little confusing. It's like hit or miss sometimes with these pieces, and unfortunately sometimes if they get stuck in the foam, and when I mean stuck, I mean like the edges are going up against the sides of the opening that they have in there. Sometimes if that happens, the piece can get damaged, which has happened to me a couple of times, and I've had to do repairs. Some of them actually I haven't repaired yet, because I was just a little frustrated and just left it in there and then forgot about it. But when the time comes where I want to use it, that's when I'm going to remember. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get it done. Now, on this base for Honeybadger, there's like what looks like a sewer grating. I'm going over it right now in dark gray, but I'm going to come back with a metallic color when this, and I'm going to color it, I'm going to paint it, I mean, that color. See, the bases are small, so they don't take long. Alright, so that's pretty much it. It didn't take long at all. So, you know what? Let's just give it a sec to dry. Whoops. Pull the thing out of here. Alright, so let's just give it a sec to dry. And we'll go over it very quickly with a metallic color. Let's see what we got here. Ooh, dark iron, but I'm not going to use that one. I'll save that for something else. You know what? I'm going to use flat aluminum to really make it stand out. Alright. So let's see. Okay, we're going to do this quickly. Alright. Alright, that's really quick. And there you go. Probably one of the few times I can go over one color with another before it's fully dried. But, there's always a first time for everything. Okay, so that was very quick, as you saw, to do the base. For both of these, bases are small, not a lot of detail on them, so I was able to get them done pretty quickly. So we're going to let that dry, and let me actually get it so that we're facing each other. Okay, so we're going to let that dry, and then when we come back, I'm going to do the armor wash, and then it's all finished. As you've seen before with the armor washes, I have a tendency to put too much. I'm going to try my best not to do that this time. Alright, so we're going to see how it turns out. I try to put very very minimal amounts of the wash on the brush, and see that if I can manage to have my pieces not look like they've just been through a fire. Alright, so stay tuned, and I will be back, and we'll do the wash. Okay, we are just about done with X-23 and Honeybadger. All that's left basically is the armor wash. So I'm going to use up what's little that I have left in this before we start on a new one.
this on first. Let's put this down a bit. Okay. So we don't really need a whole heck of a lot. So this one comes out in drops. So we're just gonna get more than just the one drop I wanted. Okay, so gonna try to put very, very little on. So that it doesn't look like that they've, you know, been basically through a fire. All right. Okay, so it's getting on. Oh, that's a little bit too much, like I usually do, which I'm trying not to do. Yeah. Oh. And it just doesn't. It just keeps coming on like that. Oh well. All I can do is try, right? Now that we get to the base, we can use quite a bit just to get it to settle into all those little crevices. But on the piece, I'm just trying not to overdo it, which I do tend to do on this, unfortunately. Oh, I think some of that black paint that I was proud of didn't fully dry. Maybe I should have waited a bit longer. Now, for Honeybadger, I can imagine I need less than what I just used on X-23. All right, this one's coming up better. I mean, on the face though, even though it gives them a look like, you know, they're dirty, it actually sinks into the crevices of the face to give that oops, sorry about that, to give the facial features. And because these pieces are so small, we're done. Didn't need all that much, which is why I was kind of hoping that less would have dripped out of that bottle. And this brush I'm always going to use for the armor wash. Okay. Okay. So from beginning to end, you see how it is to paint for me to paint X-23 and Honeybadger. I think I did a pretty good job. Let me put it here on a nice almost pedestal here. So these pieces are now ready to go once the armor wash is dried, and they're ready to be put out to play on the board. Maybe they'll come out when we do Sentinels versus Mutants. Maybe not. Depends on what me and John want to do, how much firepower we want, and you know, we might want to have more characters that strike at a distance. You know, keep away from those Sentinels. So, but anyway, they didn't come out too bad. They came out pretty good. At least I think so. I mean, if you don't think so and you think you can do better, I mean, I would love to see pictures of these or any other pieces that you painted. If you want to leave them in the comments, that's wonderful. So yeah, that's it for today. Please like and subscribe, and share this video as much as possible. To give support to the channel, and as the more exposure I get, the better off the channel will be. So just so have a great day. Like I said, like and subscribe, and have a great day, and I'll see you next time. And hopefully I got some more pieces to paint, and paint them well. All right, take care.